Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson,
better not call me pink skin,
Alan Seiler,
Major, would this be more aesthetically pleasing if it were blue?
and Veronica Dashel.
Hi.
He probably said that at some point.
I'm sure he did.
And if you're
Yes.
if you haven't caught on yet to what we're doing, we're talking tonight about Jeffrey Combs. But first, Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
Yeah, I got a couple of things that are not momentous, but they're actually very important in Trek history and for setting certain types of standards. Let's get the best of them out of the way first. On the 4th of February, 1998, the little episode was finished filming that had been full of controversy behind the scenes. That episode was the Deep Space Nine episode, In the Pale Moonlight.
Ooh.
And as Marvel Comics says, enough said.
Right. That's a good one.
Yeah, that's famous for. Yeah, it's just okay. Famous for being one. One of these days, I want to do a thing of what would Gene not do. This is an episode Gene Roddenberry would have despised. No spoilers. Yeah, no spoilers for those who haven't seen it. It's a great episode. It's great acting. It's got.
And if anybody watching this show hasn't seen it, what the hell are you waiting for? It's been 30 years.
Absolutely. And it's also famous for one of the most famous memes in Trek history. The famous, "It's a fake," which is fun. My God.
Right.
Rhyme anything with that. Rake, snake, break.
Yeah, and that people use that meme a lot.
They do,
especially with news stories that are not sourced as well as they should, or clickbait. It's a solid. It's always a winner.
Absolutely, great episode. And then jump forward to 7th of February in 1994, just 4 years before, a little TNG episode about a bunch of new young people on the Enterprise who watched the actions and exploits of the senior officers from the vantage point of the lower decks.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, really good episode. Has one of I'm gonna say real quick spoilers. So if you haven't watched the episode for some reason, just don't listen for about 5 seconds. Has one of the saddest endings in any Trek show is at the end when Picard does the cool announcement with the bosun's whistle and announces that they think Sito died on her mission. That to me, that really ties that whole episode together.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't think we saw any of those people later. Have we anywhere?
Nope.
Not later. We saw Sito earlier, just recently on Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I mean, I've got to imagine it's got to be on Mike McMahon's list to go through some more of those characters and see where they're at now.
Yeah, especially that dude who was basically the Riker clone, the one that pissed Riker off because Riker felt he was brown nosing him, and Dan is like, he's just like you at that age, just like you can't stand him. That guy was great. And then the last one I just thought was kind of cool. This hails back to the original series on the 9th of February, 1967. It's one of my favorite episodes, is The Return of the Archons. That is the one for those who might remember. This is the thing of festival. Festival. It's the crazy one where the planet decides to keep humans sane. It controls people and makes them like zombies. And then every now and then, we don't know how much, they go purge-like. The clock strikes, and boy, oh boy.
Right.
Everything goes on.
Did you know that Ben Stiller's production company is called Red Hour?
No.
Yeah.
Really?
That's really cool.
I know he's an amazing fan. It's a great episode. It's also classic Trek because it is yet one of the many where Kirk basically freaks a computer out and outthinks it, and the computer is like, help, and the computer literally blows up because Kirk out-logicked it.
Right.
I saw a theme on Facebook recently where someone says, has anybody taken all of William Shatner's lines from the original series and fed it to Chat GPT? To see
it explodes.
Yeah. It's also an interesting because it sometimes invites some conversations about, you have an entire planet that's been ruled by a computer for centuries, and Kirk leaves behind like one cultural expert. And when he's leaving, the dude's like, yeah, man, we've already had some fist fights. It's human. This is great. And then Kirk leaves.
Can you imagine if an alien spaceship came by, encountered Earth, and then drop the dude off at the end. And is like, all right, sort Earth out while we're gone.
Right? He'd probably have no choice but to take over.
Right.
He could. All right, and that is This Week in Trek History.
Awesome. All right, well, so we had a voicemail from regular listener Matt Sweatman not too long ago. Now, the week we played the voicemail, we had a guest on, so we didn't get to delve into the topic. But I wanted to play his voicemail again because we're going to do that topic this week. Here we go.
A couple of show ideas I thought I'd pass along. One, I had an idea that I don't think you covered some of the fan films out there. Maybe some recommendations on which ones are good, some particular episodes, highlights, and their effects on fandom and canon. And also, since you've done Kai Wynn, since you've done Gul Dukat, I think an episode on Wei-Yun would be kind of cool, kind of the three big baddies from DS9. So, yeah, those are just a couple ideas, and they're here for you guys. And I'll bring, if I have any more ideas, I'll call back. Bye.
Bye.
He never called back, so I guess he had no other ideas.
Matt Sweatman here. A couple of show.
It starts playing again by itself, apparently. But yeah, the week that we played that originally, we had fan film producer Randy Landers on, and we talked that entire episode pretty much about fan films. But we wanted to circle around and talk about not just Wei-Yun. We're going to do one better and just talk about Jeffrey Combs and his contributions to Star Trek. Now, if you would like to have your voicemail played on Earth Station Trek, if you have a show idea or a comment about something we've discussed, give us a call. You can get us at 307-387-1701. That's 307-387-1701. Nobody's going to answer, I promise. But you get a cute little from Veronica, and then you get to leave your message, and we'll play it on the show. So yeah, tonight's going to be our celebration of Jeffrey Combs and the many characters he has played on Star Trek. Who wants to kick that off?
Let me ask a question.
The most amazing character actor.
Yes, isn't he great? What was y'all's first exposure to Jeffrey Combs? Was it Star Trek or was it the other famous property?
I don't know if I mean, I'm sure I'd seen Reanimator. I don't know that I knew Jeffrey Combs from that because when he started playing on Star Trek, I was probably like 14. So, I mean, Star Trek was the thing that I knew him as Jeffrey Combs from.
Right.
But I'm sure I had seen Reanimator at that point, whether I knew it was him or not.
It was just Star Trek.
Yeah,
I think it was
probably seen Reanimator once.
Yeah, it was Reanimator for, well, you know what? I think it was Reanimator where I really paid attention to him. But Jeffrey Combs hails from the days where actors were pretty much always guest starring on some kind of television show.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've seen him a billion times, but never really paid attention, just like Mark Alamo. If you know how many movies I've seen or series I've seen Mark Alamo in, where he was basically like the bad guy of the week on some cop show, and then he shows up. So I first really paid attention to Jeffrey Combs with Reanimator, which I thought was really one of the weirdest movies I'd ever seen. It was just different. And then he shows up on Deep Space Nine, and man, oh man, what a character! He also kind of set the mold for the Vorta because he was maybe the second or third Vorta we had seen.
I think he was the second.
He's the second. First was a female. She was the one who strangely had telekinetic powers, which they never revisited. And then I think there was Wei-Yun, and please spoilers, folks, with Deep Space Nine, as we all know, Wei-Yun in his first introduction didn't make it at the end of that episode, which was awesome. And like Doctor Who, that made them come up with a really cool thing to bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, I think they noticed that they had something special with Jeffrey Combs as Wei-Yun, and they hadn't written that character to be a recurring character, obviously, because he died. It is science fiction. We'll figure something out, and of course they did. But I mean, the roles that he had played previously, I mean, a lot of actors had played more than one character under makeup on Star Trek.
Right.
But I think it was really Wei-Yun that put him on the map for as far as Trekkies are concerned.
Yes.
And he really popped in that role. And for one, you can see his face and he can deliver more of a performance that way. But I mean, there's plenty of actors who have played a Ferengi or somebody else under makeup and played multiple characters. Maybe you know who they are, maybe you don't. But I think it was really Wei-Yun that cemented him in the fandom.
Yeah, totally. Let me just get a couple of really quick comments.
Awesome.
Because we have some people who were watching and all chimed in to say hello. And Wayne chimed in to say "moopsie" for some reason.
What's up, Wayne? We're gonna have to get you a plushie.
Let's see. Elaine says Shran is my first.
That was the next.
Because they haven't watched DS9 yet, so she hasn't seen. I don't think she's really seen any of DS9, but they've watched all of Enterprise by this point.
Okay.
Wayne says my first exposure to Combs would be Reanimator. Like with Keith, he weirded me out.
He's so good at doing that.
He also says, I also enjoyed his voice acting on Transformers.
Wow, there's a deep cut. You're right. He was in Transformers. That's great.
Wow.
Wayne, you can't tell us who he played in Transformers. Think about it. That's awesome.
Well, I mean, Jeffrey Combs' first appearance on the show was in the episode Meridian as Tyron. And I mean, he's pretty much an alien of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of aliens. And he does fine.
Right.
But I don't think that's an overly memorable character.
No, I mean, they weren't really on the screen for that long.
Right. What did you guys think of Tyron?
I forgot he was a character until you told me.
Right.
I mean, I'm looking at his picture right now. I'm like, yeah, that looks kind of familiar. And I do kind of remember him being this weird alien that wasn't Brunt or Wayoon at one point before that. But I have no memory of this character at all whatsoever. Yeah. I feel like he was like creeping on Kira or something like that.
That's a lot of the alien guests.
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Wasn't he the one that was like paying Quark to make a program of Kira?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, look at me remembering Trek
I
stuff.
know.
Wow, get it.
Yeah,
and I think
that's a creepy one.
If Jeffrey Combs had never come back, I think that would just be an alien that was on Star Trek one time.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that Jeffrey Combs came back and was able to submit his role, I think sort of elevates that character, because now you look back at it and it's like, hey, it's Jeffrey Combs, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
He's part of the Jeffrey Combs-averse.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
Amanda Whitcomb. Hey, Amanda.
Hey.
Chimed in to say that Brunt, FCA, was her first encounter with Jeffrey Combs. Very cool.
Awesome.
Hello,
Yeah,
Amanda.
his second appearance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was his next role in DS9.
Yeah.
I think he was really good as Brunt.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice to have sort of for Quark to have sort of this Ferengi antagonist.
Yeah.
Who didn't like him and who's working against him. I love when they bring the Ferengi stuff in, and I think that he played this, you know, Quark, I mean, he's likable, but he's slimy.
Yeah.
Right.
But Brunt just cranks the slimy factor up to 11.
Yes. Brunt cranks the slimy factor up, and Wayoon cranks the creepy factor up.
Right. Brunt makes Quark look nice.
And Amanda got it right, because he always announced himself just like that.
Yeah.
Brunt, FCA.
Right.
Oh, goodness.
What's really great is later on when Brunt and Wayoon appear in the same episode.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Forgot
I
about
mean,
that.
you have to do that. And that was like season 7, right? They didn't do it until up to the very end.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time you're like, well, they've got to do something where he shows up more than one time in an episode, and they finally did it.
Yeah.
But I don't
love it
think
when
his
they do stuff
characters
like
ran
that.
into each other at all, did they?
No, I would like to have seen a Brunt and Wayoon team up episode. That would have been
Wow.
peak Jeffrey Combs.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. One of the things about Jeffrey Combs as Wayoon is it's, you know, you talk about the antagonists, the bad guys, and on the surface, in some ways, he's almost playing like a Bond villain because he's too cool and smooth for school. But good acting and good writing, he transforms it. He never comes off like a cliche. Yeah. Even though, you know, he is that villain, he's just so cool. And he would just say stuff to people like, again, spoilers to Deep Space Nine, he would just say things like, we need to eliminate the population of Earth. And he says it just like that. And he's just so cool.
Right.
Yeah, he's like, just, we need to do this thing that's terrible. And anyone else would say in a creepy voice, but no, I'm just saying it conversationally.
Yeah, and it takes fantastic acting to literally not change your voice tone, the level of your voice much, but to turn to a founder and be obsequious. When he would go, founder, and he would just bend over, and then he'd turn right around and he would say something to Damar, such as, do what you're told. You serve the founders. And it's just incredible. And what also makes a good actor is you can tell when a good actor makes the other actors around him better. Mm-hmm. Every scene that man played with, whether it was Avery Brooks or Renee Bourgeois or Nana Visitor, the scenes are elevated. with him in it, just
Right.
every single scene.
Mhm.
Well, I think particularly the scenes that he had with Nana Visitor,
Yeah.
because, you know, when they're in that, especially in season 6, when they're in that occupation, you know,
Mhm.
and they have ownership of the station for that little bit of time, and she is basically reporting to him, and they're doing the
Mhm.
staff meetings together and
Yes.
everything, and they have those few little run-ins, particularly, you know, and I just think, well, she's a phenomenal actor anyway, but there was something really, really cool about the way that those two characters related to each other.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's one of the great things about a show like Star Trek that, I mean, a lot of shows, I mean, there's plenty of shows where you have guest stars who return. You know,
Right.
Bonanza would do that, where an actor might
Oh,
be on
yeah.
Bonanza 4 times, or Twilight
Right.
Zone every season. You know, if
Right.
you're Burgess Meredith or somebody. But
Yes.
with Star Trek, you have the advantage of having heavy prosthetic roles, and
Yeah.
so you can sort of bury yourself in these characters. So I think, you know, a casual viewer might watch it and not realize that Tehran and Brunt and Wei Yun are the same guy playing these parts.
Yes.
You know, and I think that Jeffrey Combs is an actor who he can play it just straight, just as an actor on the screen, but he can play it through the prosthetics as well, and that's not always an easy thing to do. Not everyone can do it.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very
Yeah.
true.
Charles, what you say I agree with, because when I first saw Brunt, I didn't know it was Jeffrey Combs. It was one of those I didn't catch the title. I didn't
Right.
catch those appearance so and so as. I didn't know it was him for probably until the second or third appearance, until I read it somewhere.
Right.
But of course, you know, we have to remember that he did get one role not in heavy makeup,
Mhm.
and that was in Far Beyond the Stars, you know, which all the main cast got alternate roles, and all the people who were in prosthetics got roles that weren't under heavy makeup.
Right.
But it's such a cool thing to get to see the actor work in a different way through a different character, and especially the ones that are very obscured, get to see them work and not have to like work through the makeup. And he played one of the human gangsters in Far Beyond the Stars, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, in that one, you get to see him just playing this like racist human cop.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, he could have been on any TV show doing that. It
Yeah.
could have been The Untouchables or whatever, playing that character. But I mean, he does it really well. And I mean, I would think that I've never acted through prosthetics or anything like that, but I would imagine it's a different discipline when you don't have the teeth and the things on your face, like where you have to emote heavier, you know, to play it more subtle because you're just a human. I think there's a real skill set there and being able to turn that on and turn it off again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like the
Agreed.
difference between acting for the stage and acting for the camera. You got to pull it back for the camera. And then you have to push it out even more with prosthetics.
That's right. It's
But
the
subtly
same
with
difference
prosthetics.
as, yeah, it's the same difference as acting as a human on stage or with a puppet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just wanted to
Throw it in there.
I don't know why I said that. Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. Oh my gosh.
Jeffrey Combs has, and each one of these is individual. Jeffrey Combs currently has 147 IMDb appearances listed,
That's
which is
surprising.
yeah, which is amazing. And again, that doesn't count individual. That's like Deep Space Nine is counted as one, Enterprise is counted as one. So that man is always working. I looked him up a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about some other things, and even the Reanimators, that's not the only kind of horror stuff he's done. He's done all kinds of movies that you probably wouldn't notice. He's just been working a lot because he has that voice.
Wayne mentions one of them. He was like the freaky guy who gets his head blown off in The Frighteners. That's right. I remember that one very well.
I don't watch horror movies, so I will never come across those.
No, The Frighteners you would like. That's not
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you said his head got cut off.
It's Michael J. Fox.
No, it got blown off, not cut off. Less violent, I think.
Yeah, no, that's not a horror movie. It's like a fun, haunted mansion kind of a thing.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, I like where Wayne says he's not good with names, but Wayne, I think the guy who got his head blown off, that's good. That's good enough.
I mean, he's just Jeffrey Combs. You know, you can say he's Jeffrey Combs, and you know what you're talking about. But it's pretty amazing too that, I mean, someone who he's never had a lead role on Star Trek. He's always been a guest star.
Yeah.
And he's not a guy who really has a lot of lead roles. I mean, he maybe a reanimator, but
Yeah.
most of the time he's just appearing as a guy in a movie or a guest star on a TV show. And that he sort of there's like memes about Jeffrey Combs now. I just saw one the other day where it was photoshopping Jeffrey Combs' face onto everybody from Enterprise. And it was Jeffrey Combs playing everybody on Enterprise for no reason other than that people think it's funny that Jeffrey Combs plays so many characters.
Yeah.
But he sort of has his own little section of fame now just because he's a really good guest actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. So Brunt appeared 7 times on Deep Space Nine.
Wow.
Wei-Yun, there are a few different Wei-Yuns, and between them, there's about 20 appearances.
Does that include the holograms and illusions? Or just
I don't know. I'm just looking at the list.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Didn't know there was going to be a test.
Right. I mean, come on. And then there's one other role that we haven't talked about yet, which I know we're going to get to, that had 10 appearances.
We'll go right ahead.
So that being Shran.
Yeah.
It was only 10?
Which is I know. That's why I wanted to bring this up, because Shran seems like he has a much bigger presence in Enterprise than he actually does.
Yeah,
because he's like, exactly. He's one of those characters that is so integral to that show that I mean, he did like 2 and sometimes 3 appearances per season. That's it. And you think that he's there so much more than that. And that's what's so impressive about Jeffrey Combs' talent, that he gets this. And I really think this is his best character. I mean, Wei-Yun is great. I think Wei-Yun is really great. He's a very layered character. Jeffrey brings so much stuff to it. Like Keith was saying, when he, acts differently toward the founders as he does to people he sees as equals or subordinates. And the way that he treats Kira is different than the way he treats somebody else. And I think that's so fascinating. But Shran, what a great character. And I think that he has obviously a much bigger presence on Enterprise than just the 10 episodes that he appeared in.
Yeah, and I mean, there's only like something like 90 episodes of Enterprise. So I mean, that's on average he's appearing like every 9th episode, So that's still a quite a bit of a footprint on a show. But I mean, I'm not an Enterprise guy. You guys know that. Enterprise is my least favorite Star Trek to this day. And
we love you anyway.
But I really like the Andorians, and I really like Shran, because I think that part of the show was really well done. And I mean, it was refreshing in season 1 of Enterprise because they were not leaning into the prequel element of Star Trek in the way that some people, myself included, thought that they should have been. So the fact that the Andorians showed up as such a big presence after not having been on Star Trek really since the original series was a big deal. And the fact that it was Jeffrey Combs and he played the part so well, I think that was great. And I thought that was a really good. They always reimagine the makeup on these races on Star Trek, but the way they did the Andorians, I thought was very effective with the moving antennae, and I thought that was really good. They don't even do that on the new shows that are sort of touting.
They got away from that. And I remember hearing one of the prosthetics people on Discovery, I believe it was, who said, we tried it and we just thought, that never looked good. It always looked silly. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It was
I didn't think it looked silly
great.
at all.
I didn't think it was silly at all, because it seemed like it was like unconscious. Yeah, like he'd be surprised and they'd go back, or he'd be angry and they'd go forward. Like they didn't make the antennae weren't the way he was expressing himself, but it did sort of reflect the way that character was acting. I thought they did a really good job with that. I mean, I mean, especially like 2001 to 2005 technology. I mean, there's got to be motors in those things that are like buzzing on his head and stuff like that. That's got to be a continual distraction when you're playing the character, that these things are on your head the whole time.
I remember he talked about that on the Shuttle Pod show, I think.
Okay.
Because when you did that, I remember I have this image of Jeffrey Combs doing exactly that.
It's not bad enough that they're painting you blue and putting prosthetics and gluing them to your face the entire day, but now you've got like servos on your head moving things around.
Exactly. Okay, let me get 3 comments.
Okay.
Amanda Whitcomb says that he was great in the 4400,
Oh,
which I watched some of. I never watched all of, so I probably
Yeah.
never
Okay.
saw his episodes.
I like that. show.
Some unnamed Facebook user says, "Evening all, love following your takes on all things Trek."
Yay!
Well,
Ew.
thank you so much for saying that. Thank you for
Yeah.
chiming in. That's really awesome to hear.
We love that you love following our takes on all things Trek.
And we hope we never disappoint you.
We will.
Wayne now says during 9/11, there was another Jeffrey Combs who died in one of the planes that crashed into the World Trade Tower. I thought that we had lost one of the greatest character actors in the business. Wow.
I remember that.
I remember that too.
Yeah, I was on Trek BBS at that time, and that was a big topic of discussion when the casualty list came out, and people were we're not happy it's a different Jeffrey Combs, but just the fact that there's a connection for people. And is that Jeffrey Combs? Is Jeffrey Combs dead? I mean, I hate it for other Jeffrey Combs and his family, and and all that. But yeah, I remember that was a big deal.
And Elaine says his antenna were like an extension of his eyebrows. They were very effective. I agree. I love the way that they reflect his mood. Like when he gets angry and they sort of lie flat back, he just looks angrier. They just, I thought they did such a wonderful job with those.
You kind of forget about it after a while when you're watching the show. It sort of just becomes part of what his character, like you don't think so much about what his fingers are doing, for instance. You just get used to it.
Exactly. And that's, I think that's a testament to its effectiveness. I remember in the first episode that the Andorians appeared in, and his antennae moved, and I was like, oh my God, that is the coolest thing. And then, but as you say, the more that they did it, the more you just, came to expect it. It was just part of his expression.
And you'd be very confused if it wasn't moving.
Exactly. Like when you're watching Discovery.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you said that, Ron, because I was actually going to say that very thing. Is paradoxically, when they don't move, they stand out more than when they do move.
I agree.
Because you notice they're just kind of sitting there.
Right.
Yeah. I agree.
Or like in the original series, they kind of wobble back and forth when they talk.
At least they moved.
Right.
Yeah.
That was their version
like
of
that. That thing width and length, it would move. It would wobble around.
Yeah. Yeah, it just makes it seem more like part of a living organism.
Yeah.
That it's not just a static thing that's glued to the head. Like it's a part of him. And even they sort of like integrated into the way the ridge is on his brow. So it made it seem like it was part of his head.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Discovery's missing the boat by skipping out on that part of the Andorians. I think it was a really effective addition to the Andorians. And if Enterprise can do it 24 years ago, then surely Discovery should be able to pull it off now.
Maybe they should spend less on costumes and more on Andorian antennae.
Now they could CGI it if they wanted to.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. Don't ever do that.
Should. I'm just saying that they could.
Right.
Oh, that was great.
They should not.
All right. Well, on that note, let's take a quick break and catch a commercial or two. And then when we come back, we'll continue talking about Jeffrey Combs and his antennae. Stay right there.
Oh, that sounds so lurid.
Hi, I'm Gina Shock from the Go-Go's, fabulous drummer of the Go-Go's.
Hi, this is Tony Levin of King Crimson.
Hi, this is David Fishoff of the Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp.
Hi, this is Richard Evans. I am the author of Listening to the Music the Machines Make.
Hi, this is Teresa Kariakis, punk rock photographer.
Hi, I'm Tom Beaujour, author of Nothing But a Good Time, and you are listening to Modern Musicology.
Modern Musicology.
Modern Musicology.
You're listening to Modern Musicology, so, pay attention. You might learn something.
Attention, people of Earth.
Turned on the TV late last night, 'cause I felt nerdy.
Saved the galaxy from a fright,
'cause I felt nerdy. Turned on the TV late last night, 'cause I felt nerdy. Then my gravity and took flight, 'cause I felt nerdy. Exterminate, okay, destroy.
I have to go. Having some problems up here. Good luck, stay safe, see you soon.
And we're back. And speaking of Jeffrey Combs' antennae, I mean, the time that he got one cut off, it really
Yes.
did feel impactful because you become so accustomed to them. I mean, you really do feel like someone had lost an appendage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you talk about that. And when we talk about, we had Noah Averbach-Cat on the show a couple of times, and his character, Ren, had both of his antennae lopped off.
Right.
And he wasn't really around long enough for that to have the same impact. But just the fact that they didn't move the way that the ones did on Enterprise, it just felt like a different prop on his head. Whereas in Enterprise, that felt like an appendage was lost. Because you're used to seeing life, you're used to seeing movement, and when it's not there, it's so noticeable, and it comes across as being an actual injury.
Yeah.
Luckily, I think they said that they grow back.
Yeah.
And I heard an interview with Jeffrey Combs one time when he was really actually hurt that he wasn't offered a role on Enterprise as a lead character, and he felt like he should, not to take anything away from John Billingsley, but he felt like he had done the work as far as making guest appearances and recurring roles, and he had auditioned for Enterprise, I think, for Phlox, and I think he was genuinely sort of hurt that he wasn't offered that role.
Yeah.
The idea, which I personally am glad they did not pursue. The idea was for Shran, who, again, spoilers for those who haven't seen Enterprise, Shran lost his ship. And that's kind of a big deal for Andorians because they are kind of a militaristic species. And the original idea ultimately was they were thinking of putting Shran on Enterprise. And he was going to become effectively the first officer, and he would have appeared every week. I personally would not have liked that. Well, here's the thing. I love the character, but to me, it's a little too gimmicky to have him from the race become part of the Enterprise crew. I would love to have seen him continue as commander of another ship in the Andorian military forces. Putting him on the ship for me is a little gimmicky. That's me personally. So I would like to have seen him continue, but I would want to have seen him continue to be a commander on his own ship. I'm actually glad they did not go that route.
Yeah, it might have been gimmicky, but I think that Jeffrey Combs would have raised the caliber of that cast for me dramatically.
Oh gosh, all right, your least favorite show.
The average would have risen dramatically. But I think the problem would have been
watched it.
Yeah, you would have to. As much as I like Scott Bakula as Sam Beckett, I think that he would have been sort of overshadowing Scott Bakula as Jonathan Archer, because I don't think that's Scott Bakula's strongest role. But I think Jeffrey Combs is such a dynamic role. I mean, Jeffrey Combs as Shran is such a dynamic role. I think that you would have to worry about that because, I mean, I'm not trying to talk about Enterprise, but everyone there is sort of bland. There's a lot of the characters aren't as, there's no Kira, there's no Quark. You know what I mean? Where I think that Jeffrey Combs really would have sucked the attention on that show.
Yes.
This is funny because I completely feel opposite about the show than you do, and it's just interesting. The two people see the same thing because I love the Enterprise cast, but I do understand what you're saying at the same time. That's why for me, I wanted him around, but I wanted him to stay in, and I forget the specific name of their military force, but I wanted him to stay around in that way.
Yeah, I think it's like the Andorian Imperial Guard, and
yeah,
just to be clear, I like all the actors who are on Enterprise. I've seen them in other things. I think it's the characters that I just don't connect with.
Oh, I can see that. TNG had that problem sometimes too. Actually,
that's true.
Steve Fowler says, hopefully not repeating a topic, but what do you think of chances are of getting Combs on one of the new Trek shows? Well, in fact, he was on one of the new Trek shows a couple of times in Lower Decks when he played Agimus, the megalomaniacal computer. Oh my God, he's so fabulous in that role.
Yes,
he is so good.
Yeah, we didn't get him on screen, but we got his voice, and
which is almost the same.
Exactly.
It's a fantastic role because Agimus, for being a megalomaniacal computer, has a really nice, interesting arc. I mean, he was only in 2 episodes.
Yeah,
but I mean, he goes through quite a character arc over those 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Elaine agrees with Chuck, saying there would be a lot of butting heads between Trip and Shran, which I think that would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that.
And I heal first before you butt his head because it seems painful.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I think one of the things about Shran's character on Enterprise, which I did, one thing I do think Enterprise did a surprisingly good job of was building out the primary races that became the Federation, the Vulcans. A lot of people hate the Vulcan arc. I love the Vulcan arc in Enterprise, but the even the Tellarites, the Andorians, and one of the things I remember is in this original series episode Journey to Babel, when they met the Andorians. The Andorian ambassador was really cool. He was almost like a version of T'Pol. He had an interesting accent. He was very calm. And I remember when they thought that an Andorian had committed the murder attempt on Kirk, the ambassador said to Spock, he said, "My people are a violent race, but we have no quarrel with your captain." And the interesting thing about it was the guy was kind of cool. You know, he was cool. He was respectable. And what I like about the Andorians is they didn't make them a Klingon violent race. You can tell the Andorians, they're a hot-blooded race, as it were, but they're not violent like Klingons. And I think he played that really well. You know, kind of the suppressed anger. He could be violent when he needed to be, but they're big on love. They love passionately when they, going to have mates. And I think that he helped establish the Andorians as a different race. They had unique characteristics that I think worked, and that was great.
Yeah. The Andorian ambassador on the original series wasn't boisterous or anything, but I think it's a different sort of chilling when someone says to you in a very calm voice, "You're a very violent person."
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you're like, you're also kind of creepy, I think that sort of played into the way Shran played it. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that it's funny that y'all keep describing that guy as cool and chilling.
Yes.
Yeah.
The thing that I really enjoyed about Enterprise is that, every series after the original took an established race and fleshed them out in a really interesting and deep way, like the Klingons on Next Gen and the Ferengi on DS9 and things like that. And the thing that I love about Enterprise is the way that they did that with the Andorians and the way that you got they're not just like a race that we saw a couple of times. They become characters in their own right, where you understand their society more, you understand the Andorian mindset more, and that's one of the things that I love about any Star Trek show.
Right? Yeah. And interestingly, the Andorians I loved it. The Andorians were used to show that the Vulcans are not as honorable and perfect as they would have you think.
Right.
Because the Vulcans were downright dirty a lot in that series.
Right. Absolutely. And going back to what Steve's suggestion about whether Combs would play another role on Star Trek, and presuming he means live action. I mean, there was a little fan campaign before Strange New Worlds that fans wanted him to play Dr. Boyce, who was a character in the Cage who didn't make it into Strange New Worlds. But there was totally a fan campaign for that. Yeah, He could still do that. Actually,
yes,
Boyce could still be out there in retirement or something playing golf. Who knows? But you can still have Jeffrey Combs come back as Boyce, and I think that would be a wonderful use for him on live action Star Trek.
Yeah,
I would love that. He now says, Steve, haven't gotten into Lower Decks, although I have started it. I know you all give me new reasons to catch up on all these shows based on how enthusiastic you are about it. I promise I'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Keep reporting in and let us know your progress, because I always love, people who find these shows, and on the rare occasion that they find these shows through our podcast. I love hearing that you are taking the journey because of our enthusiasm. And we freaking love Lower Decks.
Yeah. So, it's a little bit of a stylistic adjustment to get accustomed to. It moves a little faster, it's a little jokier than what you're accustomed to with Star Trek. But I mean, I'm wearing a Lower Decks shirt at this very moment. We actually we have, I'm not joking, a Lower Decks shirt for every single Lower Decks episode that has come out,
plus some,
plus the crossovers, plus the bonus episodes, because we've subscribed to the Lower Decks T-shirt club every year so far. We have every Lower Decks official T-shirt for all the episodes,
including a Moopsie.
Yeah, it is my favorite of the new Star Trek shows, and I enjoy all the new Star Trek shows from one degree to another. So I think it's really impressive what they have done on Lower Decks for what that show could have been. I mean, they continually take it to levels that I didn't think that they would with the storytelling, and it's a genuinely fantastic Star Trek series.
Yeah.
And Steve, between all of us, you can find one of us who loves one of the series more than the others. I don't think any of us absolutely hate any of the series. So you can have just, I think even the ones that we all don't love, like some of the stuff with Picard, I think we all kind of sort of agree on. But yeah, you can go to anybody. Like, don't talk to Chuck about Enterprise. Talk to me and Alan.
Unless you want the truth. No, our lower decks reviews our lower decks reviews are tough because it's a lot of us just repeating what they said on lower decks and then laughing.
Yeah, and it's also a lot of us agreeing about everything.
That's true.
Right. Well,
that doesn't make for good podcasts.
That's true. Well, going back to Enterprise, Jeffrey Combs played a second character on Enterprise that we've not talked about yet. He also played a Ferengi. I meant to bring that up earlier, and then we got off onto Agamus. Right, he played Krim in Acquisition, which was a very different Ferengi from Brunt.
Yeah.
And he has said in interviews that was a challenge because the makeup was so similar that his senses are telling him that he's playing Brunt, but he's not. I mean, Krim is a very different character from Brunt, and I thought that was a really good performance from him.
Yeah,
I can tell it was him because of his voice. He has a very distinctive voice.
Yeah.
But
once you've watched enough Jeffrey Combs, you recognize Jeffrey Combs.
Right. And we can't forget his one appearance on Voyager either in the episode Tsunkasi.
Right.
It wasn't that, important
I have
role.
no memory of that.
No, it's fun that both he and JG are in that episode.
I know.
That episode is really more notable because The Rock shows up in it, but
it's that episode, Veronica.
Oh, okay. I have a vague memory of The Rock being in an episode.
Yeah, they're trying to get wrestling fans to watch Star Trek.
Yeah, you can skip it. You won't miss anything.
Right.
But that was when UPN was like doing big wrestling things, and that was like kind of a crossover between our wrestling franchise and our entry into the Trek franchise.
Yeah, that was the same time period when the Sci-Fi Channel was getting big into wrestling. Like you couldn't get away from it.
Oh, God.
And
there's wrestling at Dragon Con.
Okay. There. Yeah. TV I couldn't get away from in the late 90s. Yeah.
Wrestling maybe. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, if Jeffrey Combs came back again, I mean, what other roles might you like if he was going to be on Discovery? I mean, what would you want to see him play?
It would be a completely different character or a different performance. Well, and it's also kind of cliche to have him be yet another mad scientist. But I would love to see him play early Dr. Tristan Adams from Dagger of the Mind.
Oh,
that for those who don't remember, that was the episode where they went to the last place in the galaxy for people who are mentally. No, that's a different one. Sorry, I take that back. But it's the episode where the dude had a chair. A room with a chair, a light above the chair that could basically calm your mind. And it turned out he was a psycho mad scientist who was torturing and programming people.
Right. In Dagger of the Mind.
Yeah.
That's a good episode.
It is.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's such an interesting question.
Yeah.
So who do you think?
Well, this isn't a wholly original idea, but Jeffrey Combs, they've asked him before, like if he could come back as Wei-Yun because all the Wei-Yuns are dead. And Jeffrey Combs said, you think Wei-Yun's not the kind of guy who had a clone stash somewhere?
Yeah. Of course.
So playing off of that, I think that you could do a story like in the 25th century and kind of like the way there were Nazis like hiding out in South America and Argentina and stuff. Like after World War II, 20 years on, I think you could find a Wei-Yun clone who woke up and found out the war was over and has tried to like hide. And then you've got Worf hunting down these, Vorta clones that are out there, and you could do a really dramatic story with a Wei-Yun who's tried to move on and a Worf out for revenge. That's my idea for you.
Oh my God. So the spinoff that we have all like clamored for with Worf and Raffi, holy, and then they're hunting down Wei-Yuns. Oh my God, let's do it.
Right?
That's brilliant.
I'm
so excited now for this show.
Like
that's
Raffi's
never
on
gonna happen.
Enterprise G now.
Yes.
Boo.
Yeah, no.
I want her and Worf to go off adventuring.
True.
No spoilers, but along the lines of what you're saying, Charles, there was an episode of Deep Space Nine where one of the Wei-Yun clones was not on board with the Dominion and the war and basically being evil. and that Wayoon did not like what they were doing. He was basically the one that was good, quote unquote, good with a conscience. So that was, I think, what your point about having a later Wayoon that maybe just moves past would be very interesting, because they did that, and that was actually a very effective episode as well.
Was that Wayne 6 Treachery, Faith, in the Great River?
I'm not good with DS9 titles.
I don't remember.
I'm looking at a picture of it right now,
very
and
poetic.
it's Wayne 6 was only in one episode.
Yeah.
So
that's probably
what I was
him.
going off of.
That would be the one.
Chances are.
Well, Wayoon is a good illustration of what I always talk about. One of the problems I have with modern Star Trek is that they finish with the bad guys and then they kill them.
Yeah,
and often just when they start to turn interesting, they kill them. Whereas, I mean, Wayoon, they killed him right away, but then they realized their mistake. But the fact that they brought him back and brought him back and brought him back, that you have to come up with more interesting things for him to do. And I mean, part of that was like, finding out that they have no appreciation for beauty and things like that,
right.
that, and he seems kind of sad about that, that he wants to know, like, is that a pretty painting? Like, I can't tell, you know what I mean? And things like that. I think that was added a really interesting dynamics to that character that you can't do in an episode. You can only do by bringing these characters back and back and back. And I wish they would do more of that on the new Star Trek shows.
Agreed. And that's why when we opened the episode, our show tonight, that was why I picked that quote. Major, do you think that this painting would be more aesthetically pleasing if it were blue? Because it's such a fascinating detail, because they are genetically engineered beings. The founders created them to be a particular way, and the founders did not include aesthetic sense because it's not important to the Vorta's role in the Dominion. That's the word I was trying to think of. And I think that's such an interesting detail. And I think that they, it could have just been a throwaway line, but instead they really did something with it. And he played it in that way where it's like, he kind of feels regretful that he can't enjoy these things, but at the end of the day, it's not important because the founders deemed it to not be important.
Yeah, or he'll go on about how great the founders are and how perfect they are and they're never wrong, and then follow up with, but sometimes I think it might be nice to be able to carry a tune.
That's the one I remember.
There is that wistfulness to him.
Yes, you don't question your gods.
Episodes.
Yeah, and also I find it very interesting what you guys are saying about that, because the backstory of his people, if I remember correctly, his people were an arboreal, perhaps like a gibbon or lemur type race. And they said years ago, thousands of years ago, one of his people, which were not even sentient yet, saved the founder who was in distress. And the founder promised that they would reward his people. And that's the reward, to turn them into a genetically engineered slave race.
Right.
that carries out their bidding.
You can be our top slaves forever.
Right. Hey, at least they're not addicted to Ketracel White.
That's
at least
true.
they're in charge of distributing it.
Yeah. Interesting thing about the Vorta is they also engineered them to be immune to any known poisons, because they're basically, diplomats, but they're the kind of diplomats that are going to get stabbed or stab somebody in the back or poisoned. So they're immune to any poisons, and they have, what did he say? Weak eyesight, excellent hearing. So they can eavesdrop on anybody, and you can't poison them, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And that ties in really well with the look, because they have those larger ears and pale eyes. So when he says they have, better hearing and poor, you believe that just by looking at him. Yeah. That's a really good combination of the story and the makeup. And they're diplomats for folks who are not liked in the galaxy. So they've got to be prepared to die. Not only are they immune to poisons and stuff, but they keep backups. So when they die, there's another one of them ready to go.
Yeah. Back to the topic of who Jeffrey Combs might play were he in one of the modern Trek shows.
Okay.
I know that there's going to be a bit of an age discrepancy in between these two characters if he were to do this. But, from my memory from the original series, there was a little bit of an age difference anyway. But what if he came back to play Roger Corby?
Yeah, Roger Corby did have silver hair.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I bet Jeffrey Combs would be perfectly happy to come back and play romantic scenes with Chapel.
Right. Who wouldn't?
That would be really good, actually.
Yeah. Okay, let me get a couple of comments. One about all of us agreeing on stuff. Matt Sweatman says everybody hates very short treks.
That's true.
Indeed.
That's one fire in the Star Trek universe now.
That's true, Matt. Good point. Good call.
And Wayne says that he seconds the Wayoon hunt.
Yay!
Yay!
Yes.
Yeah,
We're just a couple of steps away from an actual pitch to Paramount.
Right. Our petition has 3 signatures. We're on our way.
No, we have
3
4.
very meaningful ones.
We have 5.
Okay.
The 4 of us and Wayne.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic for an actor like him. There's a lot, like someone said before, there's a lot of actors who are going around doing jobbing, guest starring on various TV shows. Back when all TV shows had 20+ episodes, and there were just like factories producing content. I mean, and that you'd go show to show to show to show to show. But for him to have found something that really pops the way this does, and that fans, he's got fans now from guest appearances in the 90s, which is pretty impressive. I mean, there's not a lot of guys who had a multiple guest star stint on Hill Street Blues who now have fans posting memes about him and stuff. It's just it's not that kind of a show. But the fact that Star Trek fans do hold on to that stuff, and he still gets work based on it. I mean, that and Reanimator, because Reanimator is a cult classic. But I mean, he will always show up as long as he's willing to do it on sci-fi and horror properties because of Star Trek and Reanimator. And I mean, fans just love to see him, and fans would love to see more of him in live action Star Trek. So I wish that they would bring him back again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I always find so fascinating about actors like that, and I have to put Andrew Robinson in the same category as Veronica mentioned the Shuttlepod podcast earlier, and I think I've listened to both of them interviewed on the Shuttlepod podcast, and I think Jeffrey Combs was also interviewed on the Delta Flyers when the strike was going on. They couldn't talk about the series, so they started interviewing track actors. And you're always struck by people like him. He is such a nice guy, and he's such a cultured and personable guy. And of course, sometimes people do a role, and they do roles so well that you wonder if they're going to be kind of creepy in real life. And both he and Andrew Robinson are nothing like those characters. They're just such incredibly good actors. He kind of ruined the Vorta for anybody else. Anybody else who did a different type of Vorta, they worked, but it wasn't Wayoon. And he just made that race his own.
Yeah,
there were some other Vorta characters. Yeah, there were other Vorta characters though that I thought were equally good.
Yeah, I thought there were several that were very good, but I mean, he steals the show as a Vorta.
He steals the show in general,
right?
Yeah, he did. Anybody who could stand toe to toe with Avery Brooks and make the scene pop is a good actor, because that
is the truth.
Yeah,
particularly being a physically smaller person.
Yes.
You know, I mean, to go toe to toe with Avery Brooks on screen. I mean, at least Mark Alamo is a big, tall guy and with scary makeup on. You know, but Jeffrey Combs is a smaller guy with softer makeup, and I think he owns the screen just as much as anybody else on that show does.
Yeah. There are some scenes, and we're going to have to get into this in a little more detail at another time, but there are some scenes particularly in seasons 6 and 7 of DS9 that he is just amazing. But every actor in the scene is amazing. And it's just, I mean, DS9 is one of the best cast shows I have ever seen. I mean, even the recurring and what you think are the less important roles are given such good actors.
And DS9 developed into a show that wasn't afraid to hand the show over to guest stars and recurring characters. You know, you don't have to have Avery Brooks centered in every episode. You could be gone for a whole episode, and I mean, you still feel his presence. But I mean, it takes a lot for a show when you're already paying 7 or 8 people full-time salaries to be cast members, and then say, well, let's let Aaron Eisenberg take this one. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
We'll play another guy to come in,
right?
You know, or Jeffrey Combs. They would give him big, nice, meaningful scenes. And during that occupation arc in season 6, there were whole sequences where it was just guest star. You forget who the main cast is.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, I get so excited about season 6 and 7.
I know.
Matt Sweatman says that Iggy Pop was an interesting Vorta. That's one of the ones I was thinking of.
He was.
That's a word. That's a word. That is a word.
Yeah.
And Wayne says character actors like Combs are worth their weight in gold. He, in my opinion, has never missed the mark in his performances.
I agree, Wayne. He's one of those people. He brings his game to whatever it is. Even if he thinks the movie is not good, he brings his game to it, and that elevates everything he's in.
Yeah, he's total pro.
Yeah, and kudos to the producers for recognizing that and bringing him back.
Yeah,
because you could have, I mean, you could have had someone with the attitude of put anybody under that makeup. but they knew that he was going to deliver, and they were not afraid to continue bringing him back role after role after role.
Yeah.
One of my favorite lines he did was a completely throwaway line. It's a slight spoiler, but it's when the station is occupied and Jake Sisko is a reporter. And it turns out, this is a spoiler, it turns out Jake's writing all these articles about the occupation. And it turns out Wei-Yoon has basically held all his articles and he's not sending them out because he says Jake is basically presenting it wrong. And Jake goes, what about the occupation? And he's so smarmy and calm. He's, see, that's what I'm saying, Jake. You call it an occupation. It's not an occupation. And then Jake blurts out, well, what about freedom of the press? And he goes, tell me you're not that naive. That's a great line.
I love that. Exactly where this was going because we started laughing as Keith was talking.
Yeah, I love that. It's just a perfect line there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought he was going to say something different. So here's my favorite one. It is completely different. It is almost completely out of context. The scene is the end of the 6th episode in season 6, and they've been occupying the station this whole time, and the Federation is going to come and reclaim it. And they're like, it's so tense and it's so like emergency, and they're like, oh my God, the Federation is coming. We've got to get out of here. And Wei-Yoon goes, well, time to pack.
That's it. That's a great one.
Yep, he has his little clap.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love that so much.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, surely no one turned into this episode thinking we were all going to trash on Jeffrey Combs. For now. We're all unanimously agreed that Jeffrey Combs is awesome. But yeah, I want to thank Matt Sweatman for suggesting this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're out there, like I said, if you've got a great topic suggestion or a comment on a topic we've already done, 307-387-1701, and you can leave a voicemail message that we'll play on the show, assuming everything's appropriate and you keep it brief. Or you can email us at earthstationtrek@gmail.com or join our Facebook group, Earth Station Trek, and comment. We'd love to hear from everybody, and we'd love to get more topic suggestions. We've got, another month and 3 weeks, at least, maybe 2 months before Discovery comes back. So we've got a lot of time to fill talking about Legacy Trek. So, hit us up with some topics, and we're happy to dive into them.
Yeah. One of the things that we used to do on a regular basis was question of the week, which we would always get from listeners. So I would love to get those in a voice message. So call that phone line and leave us a question of the week, something short, something pithy, something funny, something introspective, anything you want. And we'll do a little roundtable answer of your question live on the show.
Yeah, and guys, give us ideas, or next week it'll be a deep dive on Mr. Leslie.
Yeah, and again, the number is 307-387-1701. All right.
Okay, I have one thing to add.
Okay.
There were 8 Wei-Yoons because the last Wei-Yoon was Wei-Yoon 8. And 8 is my favorite number, and Jeffrey Combs is my favorite character actor in Star Trek. So there.
All right.
And today's February the 8th.
All connected. See, it's all connected. All connected.
Mind blown.
The magic of the number 8.
And I have 8 fingers.
Oh dear.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, no, actually, you have 8 fingers and 2 thumbs.
True.
Ooh, oh, okay. Now it's getting spooky. Now mind blown.
All right, Alan, where can people find more of you on the internet?
Well, cosmiccreative.com, KOZMIC creative.com. From there, you can get to the books that I've written and published by other authors, and 2 other podcasts that I do. One of them is Doctor Who A to Z, and we have an episode coming out tomorrow all about the caves of Androzani, and it is one of the best discussions that we've ever had on our show, and so everybody should go listen to it. And the other one is Modern Musicology. We have an episode coming out this week looking back 50 years at the albums of 1974. And next week's episode is going to be a reaction to this year's Grammy performance. So check those out.
And you were out last week. Did we ever mention that Veronica and I were guests on that show just recently?
Were you?
We were.
Wow, amazing. So we did an episode of talking about our favorite covers of Beatles songs. And Veronica and Chuck were on our show talking about that, and it was a great episode. Go listen to that episode, and there's a Spotify playlist that goes along with it, so you can listen to almost every song that we talked about, because there are a few that aren't on Spotify.
And thanks to Veronica, the first 3 songs on the playlist are by Mickey Dolenz.
Also, thanks to
Christmas
Veronica. I was going to say, also thanks to Veronica, we have Christmas songs in this
Yeah.
playlist.
All right. Keith, where can people find more of you on the internet?
You can find me on X and Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups.
And how about us, Veronica?
Feltnerdy.com.
Which is
a website now.
A website now.
What?
It doesn't redirect you to our Facebook page anymore.
Woohoo! Amazing.
Yep. And if you're in the Atlanta area, or even if you're not, tickets are now on sale for the Felt Nerdy and Dirty show, which debuts at the Red Light Cafe on February the 25th. If you're not local, or if you're not available, or if you don't want to come to a Dirty Puppet show, give us a like, give us a share. That helps us out tremendously. This is the biggest show we've ever put on our own. This is an actual ticketed event where we're headlining and performing the whole show at a venue, not at a convention or appearing at someone else's show. So anything you can do to like or share or get the word out is great. Or if you want to buy a ticket, buy a ticket. We're really hoping it's not us and 3 people at the show. But yeah, we're excited about that. You can follow that online at the Felt Nerdy and Dirty Show on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Felt Nerdy and Dirty. Or you go to the Red Light Cafe and they've listed it as one of their events, and you can buy tickets there. Or tell a friend. Go see a dirty, nerdy puppet show.
Bring a friend.
Right.
You come and bring a friend too.
Right.
Or 5.
Right.
Or 5.
And it is very much adult only.
Yes. 18 plus.
Please.
Recommend 21 plus.
Right.
It's puppets, but don't bring your kids.
Right.
Yes.
And where else can people find us, Veronica?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Yep. And we just recently had an interview with Andrew Sandoval, who is probably the foremost monkeys archivist alive. I mean, he wrote the Monkeys Day by Day story, which tracks what the monkeys were doing basically every day through the 60s, like day by day, what they were doing by their schedule. Most recently, he has edited Mickey Dolenz' new book, The Mickey Dolenz Archive. But he's been a producer for the Monkeys. He's been a road manager for the Monkeys. He's been their archivist. He handles their... Anyways, we got him on our show, and we had a great conversation. He has some great stories.
Yeah.
I had to sort of skip from when he was 18 to present day, so we weren't there until 2 a.m. Because he's got some great stories about other bands and things like that. So check out the Monkeying Around. You can find it at monkeyingaround.com or on your favorite podcast platform.
Awesome.
And you have a closing for us, Veronica.
It's
Brunt FCA.
Hey,
oh my gosh.
Literally anything Jeffrey Combs ever said. All right, join us next week. We go live on Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern talking about Star Trek. You can find us on Facebook or YouTube or your favorite podcast platform.
Take care, y'all. See you next week.